So here I am working away on a video, taking a closer look at all of these screenshots and concept art images for Breath of the Wild. And I keep having to push the video back because Nintendo keeps on releasing more of them. But who cares about those? Well, I mean, other than the bottle openers, those are important. But whatever. Otherwise, we just got the best freaking trailer for Breath of the Wild that I have ever seen. And it is packed with details. Let's take a closer look. But first, if you haven't yet, you should just go watch the trailer for yourself. We start the trailer with some beautiful sweeping landscape shots, and I have to reiterate that this game is beautiful. Just look at how vibrant this world looks. I'm going out on a limb here and saying that this must be right at the edge of the map, with this beach shot being right against the ocean. And when we get a look at the horizon here, it seems to stretch out pretty far. So I'm guessing that this is the very edge of the game world. Otherwise, there isn't much detail for me to point out other than that these shots are stunning. Also, I thought that was lava at first, but it's just the sun reflecting off the water. But yeah, these shots mostly just show us the large scope of the world, showing how many different environments we'll be able to explore, from beaches to tropics to deserts to snowy mountains, and the fields we've seen so much of already. But when we get into the forest here, everything may look normal at first, but if you aren't paying attention, you might miss the Koroks hanging around here and floating in the air. The first time I watched this trailer, I totally missed them, but I now count 9 of these little dudes here. Here, 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 and way back here. And then we get a look at the sacred grove or meadow here where the Master Sword is resting. We've seen this place before in previous trailers, but not at such a wide angle. With this new angle, it looks like we've got more Koroks over here too. So are they protecting or watching over the Master Sword? And if you look up, pay close attention to this important tree here. Nothing is confirmed yet, but this very well may be the Great Deku tree. Just look at that big mustache. And that would make perfect sense if the Koroks were here, since the Deku tree is their guardian spirit. But we'll come back to the Deku tree soon. Then we get a closer look at the Master Sword as it glows with a strange blue light. Could this be the spirit of the sword reacting to Link approaching? Or is it waking up? Or is it glowing with a different sort of energy for some other reason? The next few shots don't show us too much of anything new per se, but just look amazing anyways. There looks like there is a giant skeleton here, but other than that, it's just mostly landscape we've seen before. This game is gorgeous though. This game is so gorgeous. Oh my goodness, this game is enormous and gorgeous. And what is with this bridge? It's gotta be the most precarious looking bridge I've ever seen.
The history of the royal family of Hyrule is also the history of the calamity Ganon, a primal evil that has endured over the ages.
First thing of importance here is noting that we now have proof of voice acting beyond the voice, which we believe to be Zelda, that Link hears at the beginning of the game. This little bit here is all cutscene we've seen before, but pay attention to what the woman is telling Link here. She seems to imply that Calamity Ganon has been around for a long time. We know he's been around for at least 100 years, but how long exactly? And notice that when she says, history of the royal family of Hyrule, it shows us a shot of the goddess statue in the Temple of Time. That makes sense since they are direct blood descendants of the goddess. And here it looks like we have some enemies spawning from the same sort of energy that surrounds Calamity Ganon. Could this be him creating the monsters we see in the Overworld, and the genesis of this world being so inhospitable? Here we see a Moblin, a dark-colored Bokoblin, and a couple of purple Lizalfos. Here's where this trailer really picks up, so buckle in folks. This is the second part of the trailer lightning round roundup analysis. 3, 2, 1, go! Guardian is shooting at Link. Looks like we've got a ruined caravan. Who knows? Step Talus is here and he's as angry as ever. And he's not where he is usually found at the Great Plateau, so what gives? Some kind of evil tunneling walrus is digging around here and Link is jet skiing around him somehow. Maybe it's advanced jet ski walrus fishing. Meanwhile, a giant fat lizard monster is bursting out of the ground and into the air. Kind of reminds me of Moldorm. Looks like another cool overworld boss. Link is using the Cryonis rune to make his way across the water towards these giant rock formations. Or maybe they're actually giant bones. Who knows? Meanwhile, the ground over here looks like it is being corrupted by that same pink energy that surrounds Calamity Ganon. We've seen this around Castletown before, so maybe this area is close by to Hyrule Castle. This Lizalfos breathes fire. Fire is bad. Link has a shield that is able to protect him from the fire. Looks like he's also rocking a badass mace, goggles, man bun, and heavy armor. This is a big guy we talked about in the Switch reveal trailer. Is he a Hinox? I'm still leaning towards that direction since we now know that Moblins look very different in this game. He doesn't have that big orb around his neck anymore though, so this is probably a different particular one that we've seen in the other trailer, meaning that there's definitely more than one of these guys in the overworld. Also, he is enormous. Jeez, don't know where Link is fighting this guy, but they look like they're in some kind of camp, and this guy looks pretty threatening. Important detail is this mask. What is this mask? Looks like the Sheikah tearing eye, and it's red and white, like the Mask of Truth from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but upside down for some reason. What does this imply about the Sheikah tribe, especially since all the Sheikah things we've seen in Breath of the Wild have been blue so far and not red? And maybe that there are two Sheikah factions now, who knows? And also, I thought this was a tail, but it's actually the scabbard for a sword, so whoops. Did you miss the ball and chain item from Twilight Princess? Well, don't worry, with the Magnesis rune ability, you can make your own and crush bokoblins with it. Looks like we're at a different Skull Rock location than the one we've seen on the Great Plateau before, so maybe there's more than one of these giant skulls just hanging around the overworld, and enemies have made their home inside. The enemies here have spotted Link and are shooting at him with arrows, but it's okay because he blows them all up. This is some kind of giant machine of Sheikah design as it matches the Sheikah's architecture we've seen before, but what could it be? The trailer is giving us more questions than answers. It's glowing orange instead of blue, so perhaps it's inactive at this point, but don't worry, Link uses his Sheikah slate to turn it on, but we don't get to see what happens next before the trailer cuts away, and Calamity Ganon is imposing AF. Okay, so here we get a look at this village. This place looks like the most developed and intact village that we've seen so far. The architecture reminds me kind of Kakariko Village from both A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, but not Twilight Princess. Is this a potion shop? I see giant vials with green, blue, and red, the classic potion colors, possibly yellow. And check out these windmills, further driving that Kakariko connection in my head. The next area is unlike anything we've seen. It's some kind of desert town. Is it possibly a Gerudo temple? Here we see water falling from this high rock down these waterways and distributed around the village and our temple grounds. And here by the archway, there's the Gerudo symbol. Based on the architecture and this symbol, could we be seeing the return of Gerudo Fortress in some form? We tried to translate the text below the symbol here, but it turns out that it is not the same as the other script of the Sheikah slate and the Sheikah artifacts that we've seen before, so perhaps there's a separate Gerudo script, just like there was a separate one in Ocarina of Time. And this looks like the trail leading up to Death Mountain, and perhaps there was a recent eruption since all the trees are burned down here, and we only get a glimpse here because we're back to the same ruined castle town that we saw in the Life in the Ruins trailer. This time, though, we can see a guardian patrolling through the ruins. If you want to know more about this area, we discussed it in the Life of the Ruins trailer analysis. And finally, we have Link rafting on the water here, and Link's raft sure has come a long way since the NES days. Oh. Okay, remember what I was saying before about thinking that that was the Deku tree? Well, to further that thought, he's actually talking to Link here. At first, I thought it was well-edited voiceover, but here you can briefly see his mouth moving. And by what he's saying, we can definitely infer that he and Link have met in the past, before his 100-year sleep.
That look on your face tells me that you have no recollection of me, however.
I think you are now ready to hear what happened 100 years ago.
And we know that this is the same tree that we saw earlier in the trailer, since Link is looking up at him while in front of the Master Sword here. But what's confusing is that the Master Sword looks like it's again in good condition, despite looking ruined in this spot earlier in the trailer, so that's kind of confusing. And next here we can see a guardian that was beheaded recently, smoke coming out of the top and all. We aren't sure about the significance of this, but it is the same type of flower seen in the logo, so I just thought I should mention it. This game is huge! Okay, few landmarks to point out here. This zoom out shot begins here on the Great Plateau at the Tower of Resurrection. We see the edge of the plateau here, Shrine Omen Ao, Skull Rock, and the entrance to the Eastern Abbey here. And here we can see the Temple of Time. If we stop here, we can see one of those horse stables that are scattered throughout Hyrule. And finally, the camera pans all the way back around to the other side of the Twin Peaks here. So this is some kind of giant guardian, and I personally believe that this is the giant mysterious guardian that we've seen circling around Death Mountain. The size would match up, and he appears to be walking through some lava on the side of the mountain, and because of this, his feet have caught on fire. Poor fella. Okay, here we get another look at this female character, who is now confirmed to be Zelda. We called it in our last analysis video. But first, check out how cool the dungeon design is here inside this room. Notice this looks like a Sheikah shrine, like we've seen previously. However, it has the glowing pink energy of Calamity Ganon, not the usual Sheikah blue. Perhaps some of the shrines have been corrupted, or maybe this is a separate dungeon and not a shrine at all. Here's Zelda again, and it looks like she's bathing in the water around the base of this statue of the goddess Hylia. Does this scene look familiar to you? Well, it should if you've played Skyward Sword, where Zelda has to go visit these goddess springs in order to restore her memories of being the goddess Hylia reborn. And notice how Zelda is wearing all white here, just like Zelda did in Skyward Sword when she went to the surface to do this. The connection here is pretty strong in my opinion. Here looks like a cutscene of Link running away from something. He's got the Master Sword and no Sheikah Slate, so this may take place in the flashback or time travel scenes that many people are theorizing about. Biggest guardian yet? Sort of, at least. It's definitely got the Sheikah technology, but it's much larger and slower than any guardian that we've seen before. And look at the giant purple feet. Whatever this thing is, to defeat it, I'm willing to bet that you'll have to climb up on it somehow. Next, we've got Link and Zelda here, and they are looking pretty glum. Look at them standing in the rain. Could this be them having just fled from the attack on Castletown? What attack on Castletown, you ask? Just you wait. And what about these stones here? They don't look like gossip stones that we've seen in previous games. Perhaps there's some kind of grave or memorial. Here we see a shrine entrance rising from the ground, which is unlike how we've seen them behave before. Perhaps there will be more different and interesting ways to discover them than just finding them scattered around the overworld. Maybe that machine we saw earlier unlocks more shrines and causes them to appear in the world by being unburied like this. So this clip here I believe is actually cut from just before a previous clip in the trailer. Here we see Link and Zelda running hand in hand before losing a grip on each other. So I believe in this cutscene it'll play out with this scene and then that previous clip directly after it. Why they cut it like this, I don't know, but it definitely seems like it's during the same scene. Especially since when Link lets go, he then looks back behind him. And here we get a good look at Zelda's face, but this time she's in her blue outfit that we saw in the last trailer. And here we see that aforementioned attack on Castletown. And it was such a huge and robust town. We can see the same fountain here that we previously saw ruined. So this must be the moment that the town goes from robust to dust. Why did I make that joke? Who wrote this? Why did I write this? It's being overrun with guardians and burned down. Reminds me of that tapestry art we saw in the previous trailer that was possibly depicting this exact scene. Could this be the very moment the guardians went rogue and turned on the royal family in service of Calamity Ganon instead? Either way, they burned the place to the ground. And listen to what Zelda says here.
Everything I've done up until now, it was all for nothing.
Is she implying that perhaps having the guardians here was to prevent this? Or she was preparing for Castletown to be defended, only for it to get totally razed? And notice in this shot here, we see her standing with the Sheikah Slate in her hand, while Link has the intact Master Sword. All this goes back to theorizing about this game taking place in 2 time periods, before and after the 100-year sleep. And then we see Zelda running to or from something. If you look carefully, the Sheikah Slate is still on her hip here. Meanwhile, here we see Link seems to be in a group of some sort. This red-haired girl here we'll see again soon. Some kind of saber-toothed beast here, and an unknown figure on the left. At first, I thought they were standing here staring at some ruined building, but another thought, what if this is that airship we keep seeing having crashed? The shape isn't the same, so maybe it's not the exact same airship, but perhaps another giant Sheikah vehicle of some kind. Will there be a scenario where you have to bring down said ship to progress in the story? Or perhaps you simply find another one downed here. This is emotional. This could be right after the attack on Castletown after Link and Zelda have escaped. Again, possibly in the past before the events of the game. Is this a skeletal Lizalfo? And we're totally getting near the top of Death Mountain here. It looks like we're on Death Mountain Trail. Finally, we see Link totally get this guy with an ice arrow. And take a look at Link's spiky shield here. It's pretty cool. Possibly the moment that made me smile the most here in the trailer is this guy. Why? Because he's a Goron, and I love Gorons. Take a look at the Goron crest around his neck. He shouts, "Here it comes!" right before clapping and performing what I assume to be a very strong attack. Also, he appears to be wearing that same sort of blue scarf around him, just like the one that we saw Falco wearing in the last trailer. Perhaps this is a sign of some sort of group of allies that Link is assembling, or maybe it's a symbol of those who have ties to the royal family. Next, we see Link gliding down to this statue, which reminds me of the sand goddess of the Gerudo tribe. But without more evidence, there isn't much to support this. It's just a thought. No idea who this lady is, but possibly a great fairy of some kind. Though her design is different from anything we've seen before, we've had a pretty wide range of different great fairy designs. Here's this red-haired girl again, who I believe helps Link in some way through the story. Based on her clothing, hair, and skin color, I'm willing to bet that she's a Gerudo herself. Although she does not have the characteristic yellow eyes, everything else seems to line up nicely. Moving on, we get a look at this chap here, who is our first look at Breath of the Wild's Zoras. Why the Zoras are red now, I'm not exactly sure. And hot damn, I want to play through this shrine or dungeon. Just look at the level design, it looks so interesting. Here we get a good look at another Zora, possibly royalty. Their face kind of reminds me of Prince Raylis. And they've also got a big old Zora symbol on the side of their head here. We've talked about Falco in our previous analysis video already. I'd like to just point out that laugh, that's new. Previously in the last video, I was pretty insistent that this guy must be some evolution of the Rito, but with the Zoras hanging around in this trailer, it makes me question this theory again. Back to the Zoras. Big tall Zora guy here has to get down on one knee just to shake Link's hand. Is Link bringing a treaty of some kind or making a deal with these Zora people? Or maybe he's just grateful for Link helping him out in some way. And check out the design of this room. Is this supposed to be Zora's domain? With the stained glass sort of look and arching patterns greatly remind me of the architecture in the Zora's Lakebed Temple as seen in Twilight Princess. And this next scene is packed with important details. It goes by really fast, but if we slow it down and pause, we can get a few details. The first thing is that Zelda here is using some kind of light magic and aiming it at this angry guardian here. The guardian is aiming straight at Link. And Link here has the Master Sword, but this time it is worn and damaged like we've seen before. Also, no Sheikah Slate between both Link and Zelda. Could this be the moment when Link is defeated before being placed in the Shrine of Resurrection? Or at least nearly defeated before Zelda saves him with her magic? Just what could be the story implications here? And notice that the Guardian is standing over top of another defeated Guardian, possibly the beheaded one we saw earlier in the trailer. It's possible that Link and Zelda took on a few of these bad guys before being taken down by this one. And now we see Zelda looking off into the distance towards Hyrule Castle. And listen to this voice.
You must save her, my daughter.
This guy is urging Link to please save his daughter. Is this the King of Hyrule? And the last scene here is Link injured, bringing himself to stand. He's pulling the Master Sword up with him, or maybe using it to help him stand up, and it's still here worn out and damaged. And notice Zelda standing behind him. Maybe she was helping him up, or he's getting up standing between her and something. Based on the position, I'd say that this is the scene directly after Zelda confronts the Guardian here, but Link is not in good shape, and it looks like standing is a strain for him. And that's where the trailer cuts and gives us the title, but quickly it cuts back and we see Zelda standing in front of the Great Deku Tree. Now perhaps this is after Link is defeated and she brings the Master Sword here for the Deku Tree to watch over. And notice the way that she reacts. I'd be willing to bet that him moving startled her, so perhaps this is the first time Zelda has encountered the Great Deku Tree. Finally, we get, at the end of the trailer, Link being urged to open his eyes at the beginning of the game.
Open your eyes.
Possibly implying that many of the events of the trailer take place before the game begins. and we get a release date and confirmation that this is indeed a launch title for the Switch. And that wraps up our analysis of this Breath of the Wild trailer. There's a lot of detail packed into a few minutes. Thank you for making it this far. But what are the story implications here? If you want to know my thoughts on that, then make sure to subscribe now and stay tuned for my next video when I try to put together a theory on the story that this trailer presents us with. In the meantime, please subscribe and make sure to check out some of our other videos. Thanks again for watching, guys. Bye bye!